Good afternoon, YouTube. This is Chuck again, and as you can see, I'm shooting from the van. It's a beautiful day today. It's Sunday, January 22nd, and it's in the 40s outside. The sun's out shining. Uh, it's 76 inside the van here, so this is another good reason to use this as a recording studio. But yesterday, I uploaded the video about the lookout tower, and I shot that and uploaded it yesterday. And during the process of all that and thinking about the summers I spent on the tower as a kid, it just really opened up the floodgates of stories about those summers on the lookout tower. And some of them are pretty interesting. I thought I might share two or three of them with you today. Uh, One, of course, when you work a lookout tower, I got to get a little bit closer here. This is messing with the lighting. When you work a lookout tower, of course, you see every sunrise and you see every sunset, and you're right in the middle of every storm. And of course, we have here in Arizona, we have what we call the Arizona monsoon, which usually starts around the 4th of July and goes through the end of September. And up on top of the Mogollon Rim up there where the tower was at, that's right where all the storms brew, and we would get rain every day. And it usually would last about 20, 30 minutes and it would move off. But some of the storms are pretty violent, and the winds are pretty violent, and the lightning's crazy. The tower would get hit by lightning 4 or 5 times a day usually. And a couple of the stories I want to tell you today do involve lightning. But one of the things I remember seeing one day is that back in those days, we didn't have the portable radios we have now, and the radio that we used, that we talked to the dispatcher with, was a big old tube unit, and it had a footlocker full of batteries under the desk. And once a week, we'd have to get a tester out and take all the batteries out and test them, make sure they were okay. It took some kind of weird voltage, and I remember it was about 3 or 4 different kinds of batteries to make the voltage that we needed, and we'd have to go test them all. But anyway, that's not my story. This one afternoon we were there, and the antenna at the time was a big old mast antenna that stuck straight up from the corner of the catwalk, and it had 4 horizontal arms going out, one in each direction. And that established a ground plane. For any of you people that are ham radio operators, you know all about that stuff. But I can remember being in there one day, and the electrical difference between the clouds and the ground was so great that the ends of those laterals on that radio antenna had big blue balls of St. Elmo's fire the size of basketballs. It was pretty amazing to see. And we saw that several times. So the one time I can remember that they were just huge. They were kind of a bluish white color, and just the size of basketballs. It was pretty darned amazing. If you've never seen St. Elmo's fire, it's really something to see. There was another time during a monsoon storm that, of course, we stay inside the building at the time, and the whole structure of the tower is steel. So you're inside the cage. You're pretty safe, actually, even though the lightning banging around is pretty scary. But I was looking off to the east of the tower one day when a storm was moving in, hadn't quite got there yet. And probably 100 feet away from the tower was about a 50-foot pine tree. And I was looking right at it, and that pine tree got hit by lightning, and it blew that pine tree to smithereens. The only thing that was left of it was about an 8-foot jagged stump sticking up in the air. The rest of it was just blown to pieces. And of course, what happens there is the tree trunk's got a lot of moisture in it, and the tremendous heat from the lightning strike boils all that moisture in there, and it turns it basically from water to steam, the same as a steam engine, creates a tremendous amount of internal pressure, and literally blew that tree apart right in front of my very eyes. Another time, we had a similar situation going on, and it was raining, but the rain was coming from the north, and the door to the cab on top of the lookout tower was on the east side. And my mother was working as the lookout tower operator at the time, and she was a little tiny thing, about 5'4", and could be meaner than a snake when she wanted to be. But anyway, she thought she could see something through the storm, and so she's standing in the open doorway, trying to look to the east with binoculars, and lightning hit the tower, and a little jagged bolt of lightning came right in through the door. I was looking right at her when it happened and hit her on top of the head. It was about the size of a pencil. And it came in and hit her on top of the head. Well, her hair stood out for, I don't know, probably half an hour before it settled back down. It kind of knocked her silly, and I thought she was injured. It turned out she wasn't, but she was pretty disoriented for a few minutes before she finally got her wits back about her. But, I was looking right at her when that happened, and that was a pretty bizarre incident. But the other one I want to tell you about was downright scary. Well, that area up there is used a lot by the Air Force for fighter pilot training. And because of the nature of how the terrain is up there, they do a lot of what they call nap of the earth flying, which is when they fly pretty low. And they'll fly about 30 feet above the trees. And our tower was actually not on a peak. It was on the edge of a mesa. And so we had pretty good view down to the north and to the east, not so much to the south and not hardly at all to the west. And so I was over on the north side of the tower one day because it was warm, and that was the shady side. And I was kind of sitting out there doing something or other, an 11-year-old kid, so who knows what I was doing up there at the time. But I happened to glance up to the north, and I see a fighter jet coming. It's actually flying lower than the level of the tower, but I'm watching this jet, and it's coming straight at us. And it was, that was back in either 60 or 61. I don't remember which summer that was. I think it was the second summer. So I'd have been 12. But anyway, I see this jet coming, and it's coming directly toward the tower at a lower level than the tower. And like the jets of that time, it was trailing black smoke, which is one of the reasons why I was able to see it. And so I keep watching this jet, and it's getting closer and closer and closer. And finally, I realize it's coming directly toward the tower. And I didn't have a chance to do anything. I'm sitting there mesmerized looking at this fighter jet coming at me, who knows how fast. And I actually got to the point where I could see in the canopy. The pilot did not have his visor down. I could see his face. The pilot all of a sudden realized this tower is sticking up 30 feet above the trees right in front of him. And fortunately, he had really good reflexes. And he turned the plane sharply on its side, stood it right up on the right wing, and put the power to it, and went past us on the west side of the tower, going north to south, sitting right vertical, standing up on his right wing. I clearly remember seeing the bottom of that plane go by the tower, maybe not over 50 feet away. I remember it said on this plane, it was not an Air Force plane, it said U.S. Marines on it. And I could see the stains from the oil spills on the bottom of the plane. You could see the rivets. And I felt the heat from the exhaust when that plane went by. And I'm sure that pilot was just as scared as we were. Because it was one of those things that, you're not even scared until it's all over with. And I remember sitting up there looking at that and saying, I almost died. That was pretty amazing. My mother saw it when it was a little closer. I saw it first. I was outside. She was inside. She was working as the tower operator at the time. But, of course, the roar of the engine shook the whole tower. The plane went by. I don't know what kind of plane it was, but I do remember about it was a delta wing thing. So looking at it from the bottom, it looked like a great big triangle. And it didn't have a tail. It was a delta wing. And I remember the roar of the engine. I remember looking at that big U.S. Marines on the bottom of it. And it was one of those things, the whole thing was over with before we even had a chance to think. So 3 stories from the lookout tower. I've got a few more. It's coming up on 10 minutes, so I'm going to wrap this one up right here. So, as I always tell you, love each other, take care of each other. It's a wonderful life, and we'll catch you on the next one.